Okay, hi everybody. We are back again for another chat between Imogen and I, and today's topic is all about acute injuries and how to deal with them, both in the first instance and later down the line, because sadly this week Imogen has had a bit of an injury herself. Imogen, I'm going to pass it over to you to tell us firstly what's happened and what your experience has been.
Yeah, so yesterday morning I fell down the stairs. I was rushing to go out the door and it just like one of those things. I think I misplaced my footing, my ankle rolled and I landed on my foot. So I think I have sprained my ankle. Um so it's a bit sore and a bit puffy and I'm hobbling about.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh
but
no.
it's okay. Luckily, it was just the ankle. Everything else was okay. It was more just the shock of doing it that would cause problem rather than any other injuries.
Yeah. And so, obviously you could tell at the time whether it was a do I need to go to a hospital jobby or whether it's something that I need to kind of just, do something in terms of acute injury, pain, and knowing that it wasn't necessarily a hospital job. How did you kind of make that decision at the time?
Initially, when I first do it, my boyfriend will attest to this, is no, I kind of screamed out that I thought I broke my ankle because I heard it crunch and it was instant pain. And I just collapsed onto the stairs and was like, I can't wait there on this. And it took a little while sort of to just kind of gather myself. And at the time I had shoes on, so I hadn't even took my shoe off at this point because it was just sore. And so it was kind of that initial shock sort of response. Once I'd kind of calmed down, it was then at that moment of like, right, okay, actually, can I move my foot? Like, is it actually able to move? And it was sore, but I could feel I could move it. And then because I was on the stairs, I was like, right, well, let's see if I could actually weight bear on this. And it was a bit of a tentative, can I step on it? But I think for me, at the point when I was like, once I'd calmed down, I even got over that initial shock of what had just happened, was I actually know it's sore, but I can weight bear. Although I don't want to, but it was the fact that because I could do it, that I was like, right, I don't think I need to go and seek any sort of emergency help here. I can kind of figure out from obviously my own skills and stuff what's going on. Um, I think had it been a case of I couldn't weight bear or I'd like there was more like it didn't swell initially and things like this, I think had it have done those sorts of things I probably would have gone actually I probably need to seek some medical help, but because it didn't, I sort of tried to regroup myself and carry on type stuff. So that was kind of in the initial bit, it was that process of initial shock, like oh god, to then calming down and being like right, actually
Yeah.
what's going on.
And I think that's kind of a couple of important points to make, really, when it comes to acute injuries, is a kind of obviously that immediate reaction, both mentally, your kind of perceived reaction to what's actually happened. Obviously, you'll kind of have that kind of big flood of adrenaline, and that a will help a little bit with the pain, but also in terms of your perceived what had happened, you mentioned obviously earlier to me today that you heard the crunch, and often when we hear something in combination with actually doing something and feeling pain, sometimes we automatically find or feel that actually we've done something worse than what it actually is. And as I know that we've talked about this on one of our previous discussions when it comes to clicking joints, make bones and different kind of tissues within our body making noises, whether that's a crunching kind of noise or a clicking noise. Sometimes it's not always necessarily the worst possible scenario, but it is actually, we have tissues that move, we have bony structures that rub against each other, and obviously, moving in an extended range of motion in which your ankle is perhaps not normally used to doing, or should not be moving in quite such a way, is still going to kind of cause some of those sounds in combination with the movement that you experienced in the ankle. But that's not always necessarily an indication of I need to go to hospital. But like you said, equally, it's allowing that just short period of time, for you to start to regroup and think, okay, what has actually happened? Can I see any swelling? Can I see any signs of kind of a real physical injury on the outside in terms of the inflammation that might be going on? Maybe it's immediate bruising. That might be also a good indication of something that needs to be checked out. So I think those are really good points. And, we've discussed this a little bit before, as I say, on one of our previous discussions. It's the kind of thing that we also recommend to our own clients, when people have asked us that question, or when both of us at times get emergency phone calls from people saying, I've just done this, what should I do? Do I need to go to hospital? What's the form of treatment? Should I come and just see you? What's the situation? And obviously, a lot of the time, when you have an acute injury like that, when you are experiencing pain, I know a lot of people don't like to do this, but one of the first things is, if you've got pain and, yes, you want to have that initial time, like you said, to check, can I weight bear on it? But once you've kind of made that decision, there's no harm in making sure you do two things. Again, it was a part of our other one of our other discussions on heat or ice, is maybe taking something like ibuprofen to help with the inflammation, and then putting, a cold pack or even a pack of peas, whatever you've got available to you, to help bring down any, if there is swelling, if you've got pain, just as an immediate form of treatment as you are deciding what it is that you need to do, whether you need to go for hospital treatment or not. And I think, there is a place for medication when it is that kind of a situation, as a short-term form of pain relief. But obviously, if you don't have that level of pain that's ongoing, and then you can continue to kind of recover without feeling like it's unbearable, without either of those things, then obviously, again, going back to that previous conversation on heat and ice, ideally you want to allow the natural, repair processes in your body to start doing their job without delay as best you can, unless obviously you do need to take that pain relief. Did you feel that you needed to take any pain relief with your experience yesterday?
I did later in the day, actually. I didn't straight away. I straight away after I did it, I was icing and elevating was what I went for.
Yeah.
Because for me that was enough. And that seemed to help. It was when I'd been, so because I made the decision that I could sort of weight bear on it, and I was gently walking around, I suppose, was kind of how I took my initial, once I kind of, like I say, once I kind of got over the initial bit, I was like, no, I want to keep this moving. I don't want it to stiffen up. And actually, like at the start, it wasn't particularly swollen either. So I was like, right, let's just get this moving and it should be okay. So I just, like I say, rested and iced it. For me, it was later in the day and later on in the evening when the swelling actually started to come out. And it was then that I chose to take the painkillers, because it just started to throb more.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get comfortable even with it elevated. So for me, I didn't reach for the painkillers until the evening, and then I had some overnight as well because I just couldn't get comfortable with sleep.
Yeah, and again, there are individual differences. Everybody is unique. Some people, it might kind of start swelling straight away. Some people, like you say, it might appear later. Particularly, if you do have a period of time afterwards where you are a bit more sedentary, and a lot of people can't avoid these things sometimes, if they're working, etc. And you do find, obviously, the lack of movement reduces the amount of heat going to the area, again, the amount of repair processes going on, because you are being sedentary and you're not moving it, which is another reason to keep moving. It's not just because we do need to keep mobile with these things, so they don't, what we call, like you said, stiffen up. It is more just like, it will do that, and it will feel more like it's stiffening up as the inflammation increases, because of the fact that you are reducing the blood flow to the area because you're not moving it so much. So that's that kind of mixture of movement's key, because you want to keep blood flow kind of going, you want to keep those repair processes happening and getting all the right things going to that area. But equally, if you don't do that, again, later down the line, you might start to experience some more of that happening, because of the fact that actually you haven't moved it. So yeah, it really is kind of individual, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. But there's like, I've certainly found there's a line with it for me at the moment. I have, if I sit, like you say, if you're not moving it, then you can feel it. When you start moving, it's more difficult, and then it certainly feels like it becomes easier once you've been walking around and stuff, and I can weight bear a bit more on it. But then there's a line of where if I then been up and around, moving around too much, then again it starts to do the opposite and get sore and uncomfortable, and I need to sort of sit and rest. And it's just that finding that line, and listening, recognizing it. It's like, okay, now it's had enough, it's worn out, it's fatigued, and it now needs to rest and recover again.
Absolutely.
So it's just constantly adjusting, like so.
Yeah,
Is what it's doing the last 24 hours is what I've been up to.
Oh, bless you. Okay, so what is for you, again, obviously, thinking about your own repair processes now in the coming week to 2 weeks, what would be your recommendation to yourself, the kind of things that you would tell your clients in terms of how you're going to treat that ankle over, as I say, at least over the kind of next week, when you're thinking about the short term kind of rehab of that ankle?
So already I've been making the conscious effort to try and make sure I'm walking more evenly, because it's very easy to limp, and I'm trying not to do that where possible, especially when it's been rested and it's feeling easier, so that I get that normal walking gait back. For two reasons. One, just so that I get that load through the ankle, and it's getting sort of the slight sort of positive stress through it to help that recovery and begin that rehab side of stuff, and also so that I don't irritate anything else, and from where it's compensating. And then when I have been resting, or I know that I've been a bit more sedentary, I've been doing a lot more sort of like, just active movements, for a range of movements through the ankle. So working those, and working out which ones are my sort of where I've lost. So for me, it's the inversion, eversion. I went over on the lateral side, so it's natural that that's the bit that's going to be lost. Whereas the plantar flexion and the dorsiflexion, so the point and flex, for me that's better. That's more variable though. So depending on how it's feeling, very much depends on how much range I'm getting at the moment. So when I've been sat, I've been doing a lot of that, and which feels quite nice as well. The first few reps feel sore, but that's to kind of just get movement back through. Once I can comfortably stand and walk about with the walking gait again, I'm going to start bringing in the proprioceptor stuff, so balancing on one leg, just because running's my sport and I've been doing a bounce cast, so I've got a lot of like ankle heavy type activities that I want to get back to, so I'm going to start bringing in that to help build up strength, and also I think, like I said to you, didn't I, with the fact that I don't think it's as bad as what my brain is telling me it is at the moment, so I want to get some stuff where I'm challenging it a little bit more to kind of convince my head that it's okay to weight bear on it. So I'm going to do that, and I think I probably, if not today or tomorrow, will start doing it with eyes closed, just to add a little level of challenge, and then it will start sort of upping the ante from there, I think, over the next sort of weekend to beginning of next week, providing it's all going well, to add in either bits with movement. So I was either like calf raises, toe raises, things like that, so I'm getting a little bit of load, but I might end up starting it with holding on, depending on how it's feeling, and then I will probably add some sort of like, I've got a wobble board here, so when I'm in between clients, I might try and see practicing on a wobble board and then doing that sort of single leg type work there. Or if I'm at home, I'll probably just pop a pillow on the floor and do similar, but with a pillow, just so that I get the uneven surfaces.
Yeah.
And then I think I was toying with what to do with the actually testing the return to sport side of stuff. I think I probably will test running before I do bounce, purely based on the fact that I've got more control with run than I do with a bounce class, because you're in an environment with a teacher and I don't really have the say on what the routines and stuff are. Whereas running, it's done in my home. I can walk if I need to, and I know I can walk. Whether it be even with a bit of a hobble if it is really sore, but hopefully by the time I go out for a run it won't be like that. So I will probably test like a bit more bounding, like skipping, hopping type movements before going for a run. And then I think if I do whether I go for the run next week, we'll see how it is towards the end of the week. And if I do, it'll only be a short, easy 5-10 minute thing, just so that I get the bounding movement through. And it will probably be a walk run, just so that I get a little bit of stress on it, but nothing to challenge it too much like I normally would.
Yeah, I think that's great. You kind of described kind of the exact process that I do with all of my injury rehab clients. So in terms of the strength and conditioning that you kind of bring back in. So it's kind of, again, to kind of summarize, it's like thinking about, you know, rolling out and kind of a little bit of kind of what we might call, it's like a bit like stretching, but you know, you're testing the mobility. So it's all about mobility and flexibility first of all. And then you're looking at, you know, adding in specific movements. So you're thinking about the types of movements that you're going to be using your foot for, which is really important. Then you're going on to more of the strengthening stuff. So again, you were saying the proprioceptive kind of exercise, a lot of you know, single leg exercise. I mean, this is great just in terms of general kind of strength and conditioning, making sure that you're evenly balanced, if you like. It's much easier to try and really focus and isolate on you know, I might be talking about muscles in particular, but obviously joint movements as well, when we're thinking about the adaptation of tendons and ligaments and things like that after an injury. But also if you're just going into, you know, strength and conditioning and improving what you can do, particularly in terms of range of motion with that kind of joint, and then like how you build it up, and like you say, going back into sport, you know, it's a whole kind of process. And although those are, you know, it's a really good summary of the process, you know, that is not a definitive time in which that is going to take for each individual person. You know, everybody is different, and you might have to spend longer in one stage compared to the next stage, and you might be quite disappointed when you get to a certain stage that you feel it's really slow progress in terms of your rehab. So you just have to kind of take each stage at a time, and really make sure you kind of focus on, you know, as I said, it's really thinking about the movements that joint can make, but also that you use the way in which you use it for most regularly, and the type of sport that you might be doing and what might be most appropriate to that. You know, there's not a one size fits all when it comes to injury rehab at all, which is why obviously it has to be so personalized to that person's environment, situation, you know, as we talked about before, what job they do, whether they're more sedentary during the day, even if there's someone who does you know, a particular sport, or they do a lot of training, you know, there's other, you know, environmental factors in that person's life which may impact their recovery from something like this. So that's why, again, kind of seeing someone individually for this kind of thing is really important sometimes, so that you can kind of get the full background and make sure that a rehab plan is totally tailored to that person.
Very much so. I mean, it's like the bits, like the couple of bits from it is like I've got backups depending on how it is responding. So my boyfriend's mum gave me one of a crutch last night because I was really struggling to walk to the car. So I know there's a crutch around if I really am struggling, because obviously with the job we do, we're on our feet a lot. I work upstairs, so there's up and downstairs, so there is the option of that. At the moment I've managed to my day structured so that I don't have too much time up on my feet, like there is regular gaps in there, and so I know that I'll be able to get some rest, but it might be different tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I know that I've got that as an option. I've also got the kinesiology tape, so the rock tape, and I know that that works really well to help with where the swelling is. So at the moment, because I haven't been on my feet much today, it's not too bad. I've been resting it a lot, but I know that I've been up on my feet a little bit more this afternoon. So I know that if I need to, I can quickly pop that on, and mostly it will just help aid with sort of that lifting on the superficial tissue to help with the sort of drainage of the swelling and stuff, so it should just help it keep a little bit more mobile. But there is also the fact that you've got tape on it, so there'll be that psychological part of my brain being like, it's okay, it's supported.
Yeah.
So I know that I can reach for that as well, and it's things like that of working, like you say, when you're with the individual, you can work out actually what are some of the other strategies that might be helpful to just help along that journey, and know that they might be implemented at different points as well. And another one that I've done, which, because I know that I'm going to get frustrated like everyone does, wanting to get back sooner, is come up with what I can do instead. So obviously there's the rehab specifically to help my ankle, but just because it's my foot that's sore, like the rest of my body is fine. So there's yoga, I've got some yoga videos and stuff like this, which will focus probably more on the core, because there'll be movements that I don't have to worry about my foot at all, and bits and pieces like that, or even arms. There's bits and pieces I can do where I can focus on everything else but my foot.
100%, and I'm so glad you've brought that up, because I have so many clients who come, and it might be, again, like you, it might be like a lower body injury, or the other way around, it might be a shoulder injury, for example, and they're just like, yeah, oh God, this is going to take me out of training for ages. And I work with a lot of people who one of the main things that they're doing is strength training. They are in the gym a lot, or they have access to the gym, and they are used to doing that as part of their routine. But it doesn't stop them doing the other half of their body, or lots of other areas, or even single leg stuff on another leg if it is one
Yeah.
ankle, for example, that, or knee that is injured, for example. So there is so much you can do, and I think a lot of people do make that mistake, actually. Obviously, yes, if it's if your main thing is a sport like playing football, for example, yes, that is going to have implications in terms of playing. But again, in the meantime, I still do believe that most of those people also don't make the most of that time. There's ways to keep still both kind of cardio fit as well as strength and conditioning fit. Strength training in itself can, will kind of spike your heart rate depending on what you're doing, and as long as you're doing it correctly. And there's ways to keep in good condition in other areas as best you can. You don't have to become totally sedentary for the period, for the rehab period. There's so much you can do, so it's just about getting the right advice, and making sure that you understand what you can do, what's safe to do, what's not going to impact your recovery in any way, but you can still continue to train something that is going to be beneficial to your overall performance, particularly if you are someone, as I say, is part of a sports team, or you're an individual more elite athlete. You must kind of keep those things up, otherwise we know how quickly different kind of skills do get reduced very, very, very swiftly if we don't keep them up. So that's going to be cardiovascular, or it's going to be kind of in terms of strength. Yes, okay, that one area is going to diminish a little bit for a short period of time, but actually you can maintain quite a lot by doing other things in the meantime. So I think that's a really, really good point to make. And I think actually you've touched on a couple of other things today, which I think we can go on to for our next chats, which is, obviously that discussion on return to sport and what that looks like for people, but also the use of strapping and taping, which I think is a really nice kind of topic to spend a bit more time on, because those people who are perhaps experienced in terms of the field of what we do, they will know how to use those, and whether they need someone else to do it for them, whether they can do it themselves if if they've got a particular injury that lasts for perhaps a longer period of time, or something that kind of keeps niggling and they need a bit of support for a little bit longer. So I think maybe that's a good idea. We'll kind of schedule another chat all about strapping and taping, how to use it, and what different options there are, and what does that look like, and how might it kind of support people.
Yeah, sounds good.
Fab. Okay, right. Well, there's only one thing to say, which is to wish you well, Imogen, and hope your ankle gets better
Thank you.
as soon as possible. But maybe if we make our next chat about the return to sport, you can give us the update on how it's going and what your experience has been on that side of things as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.